of this community. This community would go by my backyard. My backyard and my bedrooms, my private areas of home, would abut a public area. They also mentioned Creedmoor Hospital, which is a 20-some-odd story building. Yes, but that's surrounded by Union Turnpike, Cross Island Parkway, Winchester Boulevard. It has no homes surrounding it. It is not shadowing homes. This project would be detrimental to my backyard. I would lose my privacy. Now I will read the statement that I submitted, that I oppose this variance. When they acquired the property in question, it was our understanding that a single-story cultural center, athletic field, and a 100-car parking lot would be planned project, according to the deed of the property. Our community never opposed this. Variance requests has consisted of several designs. First was a 9-story senior housing of 120 units and 96 parking lots. Next was a 9-story building, 141 units and 100 spots. Next was 6-story, 2-story units with 92 parking spots. Now it is 1 4-story with 57 units and 75 parking spots. This 4-story building is also to have a rooftop recreation area, which effectively makes this a 5-story building. The ICCC stated previously that they could not afford to build a building smaller than 9 stories with 141 units and still be cost-effective. How can the current design of 57 units provide the ICCC their cost needs? The master plan for Creedmoor campus prepared by the borough president clearly states that all new construction conform in scale, architecture, density, and use with the surrounding community. The current plan is still incongruous with the scale, architecture, density, and use of the surrounding community of ranch-style single-family homes. We are concerned about the building's impact on the city services of water, sewer, and roads. Our neighborhood is currently overtaxed by the sum of the single-family homes that were replaced by 2-family homes and that have between 3 and 6 families illegally living in them. Our water lines are breaking, our sewers are backing up, our roads and curbs are crumbling. Since none of this infrastructure exists on this property, where and how would these buildings be connected? Our current community services cannot supply these buildings. We cannot stress enough that what is proposed is not in the best interest of this neighborhood. It does not serve this neighborhood. We request that you do not approve this variance. It would change the nature of the neighborhood of the homes and families into an overdeveloped lump of cement. It removes the green space, safety, peace, and quiet of the neighborhood we cherish. Previous meetings with the ICCC have been filled with rhetoric, duplicity, and deceptive presentations. Just 2 more lines. It seems that this still is the case. The ICCC has several postponements. We received their proposal on September 16th. September 12th, we were given till September 16th. That is 3 business days. They had 7 months. This is a brief statement. I will be submitting something in writing in the coming weeks. And one last thing, when they talk about seniors, the area has an organization called SNAP, an organization called NORC. Both organizations are devoted to keeping the seniors in the housing that they are currently in within the neighborhood. Thank you.
I'm going to read off my phone because I'm 22 and I do that.
We know.
Hi, my name is Casey Leisky, and I am the Vice President of the Belrose Hillside Civic Association. I am here today because I oppose the project as planned. My bedroom window overlooks this property, and I quite enjoy watching the sun set every night. But if this project continues as planned, I will no longer be able to do so. This pretty much 5-story building would be built right across the street from my home. I will be forced, like many of my neighbors, to keep my blinds shut to maintain my privacy. The people living on the 3rd and 4th stories as well as the roof would be able to see right into my bedroom window. That is how close these buildings will be to my house. The building started out small as a community center. It has since escalated into a monster of a project. The idea of a giant building encroaching on my block is terrifying. And now, yes, We do have the Creedmoor building that is 20 stories high, but it is not surrounded by any private homes, as was previously stated. Also, opening the 22nd Avenue dead end would mean the end of childhood on my block. Living right next to a Cross Island Parkway on and off ramp, as well as between Hillside Avenue and Union Turnpike, cars like to speed down 242nd Street. The 82nd Avenue dead end is the only safe place that the children on our block have to play together. My friends and I used to spend hours at the dead end, spending time outside, getting fresh air. We played basketball there, kickball, and various games of tag. Opening this street, thus ending this safe play area, would take away not only my memories, but the memories of so many children that have yet to experience the dead end and to have a safe place for them to play outside. There are so many problems with these plans, whether it be all of this illegal activity, claiming to work with a nonprofit that has never heard of them, or the fact that these buildings would destroy the charming character of my neighborhood and create ridiculous amounts of traffic. I ask, when will all of it stop? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and BSc staff. My name is Paulus. I support our non-profit ICCS and the project. For the GCL, please note that Winchester Boulevard and Hillside Avenue are very wide and large streets. These streets are in the old days were used for military drill practice. Creedmoor used to have 7,000 patients and was able to handle the large number of people, and now the population of Creedmoor is hundreds, as per the King's Civic Report. By giving the GCL to ICC seniors, no traffic confusion will take place. The 82nd Avenue Street easement is 80 feet wide, and it can further minimize traffic problems. Those opposing the GCL permission are ignoring the facts and not presenting any solutions. It is my hope and request that the board will be courageous and people of honor and grant the GCL permission. Also, there is talk that we do not have the expertise or do not have the financing. We have lived here for over 40 years. We have professionals in every field from this area. We have the expertise and the financing. We are engineers, bankers, architects, and professionals. We are the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, respected Commissioner and the chairpersons. My name is Chaladure Albert and I am a resident of Queens for more than 30 years. I am here to support the ICCC project. There has been a lot said at community meetings and a very organized campaign against the project. So I have to stand up and speak. I have not spoken up in the past, but the attacks on the ICCC project are so much that I had to come and tell you the truth. We need to take care of seniors like me. I'm a senior. There is a bottom line. The need for senior service is obvious. I went on to the computer and looked at the location of the senior housing in Queens. The New York City Department of Aging senior housing list for Queens has sites mostly in Flushing, Far Rockaway, and Jamaica. There's only one site in our corner of Queens. The population of Queens is 2.3 million people. The number of seniors in Queens is 13.4% of the total. With this amount of people, who would say no to building more senior housing? It's a crime to have left a land the ICC folks now own to go unused for all these years. Right now there is an organization called India Home that tries to serve seniors. It provides senior services at a different location in Queens each weekday. The ICC members are offering different vision. I am a homeowner and I have no one wants more traffic, but let us talk about facts here. The proposed location is across from 22-story hospital building. There is a campus for middle school and high school nearby. There is an exit ramp for the Cross Island Parkway at this location. When I drive down to the past Union Turnpike, all I see is a smokestack that has not been used for decades and have overgrown bushes. Further on east down the street, there are bars, restaurants, and grocery stores. Near my house on Union Turnpike, there have been bars and restaurants opening up, and they open until 4 a.m. No peep from elected officials and people who like to complain when it really comes to protecting our neighborhood. You really have to question their motivation in attacking senior housing. I will leave it at this point. Mayor de Blasio said that he wanted to create more housing. Senior housing is an important part of the need of housing. I strongly recommend the members who gather together really support the proposal of ICCC. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. The residents of
I'm sorry, please state your name.
Thomas Diana, I'm an engineer with the city. The residents who bought houses in those neighborhoods deserve to keep them. These are single-lane streets for several blocks in each direction. If you get an access van for accessoride, it cannot pass another vehicle. You can get 2 compact cars can pass, but a truck, an ambulance, accessoride cannot pass another vehicle. You have to pull into somebody's driveway, let the car come by, okay? The supporters of the ICCC are investors in the ICCC. There is no community out there. They are the investors. They are people who pre-purchased apartments in these buildings, okay? There is no charity work here. It's one investment against people who've lived there for 30, 40, and 50 years are being asked to sacrifice to make sure their investment covers, okay? The IG report said that the community and the state senators were misled at every single step. We are not surprised with that. At the community meetings, they were told that everybody was going to have access to this space. It was going to be a one-story little building, and that all of the money raised was donations to the church community center. Sure enough, we were told at the church meeting that this was now mortgages on the property, and they would be giving the apartments to prepay the mortgages. Then the IG report came out and said it was pre-purchase agreements for the original community center, which didn't have housing in the first place. Okay? At the meeting, we were first told that this was going to be for poor immigrants, okay, who just moved to the country. When that did not fly, suddenly it became, people who were selling their homes after 40 years. And one of the women complained here that you're selling a $600,000 house and then you can't afford to buy a condo. Which is it? Either you have a paid-off $600,000 house or you're poor. It's senior housing, but anybody can live there. All right? You have to be told this. I asked specifically at the meeting if anybody from other than the original investors was going to be able to purchase an apartment in these buildings. And I was told no. I was told directly that they were going to hold a lottery if they had to, but they could not help it if their people won all of the apartments. Okay? And if they're already sold, that means it's not open to everybody in the community. And if it's going to be senior housing, then it has to be open to everybody. All right? And I got to laugh when somebody says that, they're experts at this building. Their whole excuse for needing the tall buildings was that they forgot the water and sewer. So which is it? Either you're experts and you forgot the water and sewer, or you're amateurs and you forgot the water and sewer. You can't have both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, Minister, Commissioner, and BSF staff. Myself and the people have come here
I'm
to
sorry,
support.
sir. Can you please state your name?
Oh, sorry, Philip Scaria.
Thank you.
Yeah. Myself and the people have come to support the ICC. There are more people back in Queens. We have lived here, raised our families, and are seniors. We are professional. There are nurses, doctors, engineers, architects, lawyers, bankers, and developers. Many of us came to this country as a professional, and our children and grandchildren have followed. We live in this community. We have lived here for a number of years. We have raised our families here and paid taxes. Queens is our home. We need more senior housing. Based on what is being proposed, this is typical of something we could be able to support. We believe in the community. Please do not think the finances should be an issue for this project. We also have the expertise. We have built our families, our homes, and the communities. We have experience in developing. People do not let people tell you we do not have experience. It is patronizing and looks down on us. If you accept the argument, then you are listening to those who are putting this project and seniors down. No units have been sold. When it is built, it will be for everyone. This is a project by the community and for the community. Please, please support the community and seniors. Please support ICC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Annie Paul, the Rockland County legislator in the Women Area. Actually, I'm the only elected official among the Indian community here in New York, which they always ask for support. So I came to support them. And many of them were there, all India with me in Rockland, many occasions. So I really want to support them. And along with the community leaders who have lived in Belrose, Floral Park, Glen Oaks, and Queens Village for almost 30 years, I'm speaking on behalf of the Indian Cultural and Community Center, Inc., a secular New York non-profit 501c charitable corporation created in 2002. It would like to construct senior housing, a community center, and open space on the Creedmoor campus that will be available to the residents of Queens and the New York State. In order to meet the growing needs of seniors in our community, the ICCC would like to build senior housing and a community center on the Creedmoor campus. Currently, 1 in every 8 individuals in the U.S. is over age 65. By 2030, the elderly population will more than double, and 1 in every 4 individuals will be over age 65. The face of America is changing increasingly. We are becoming a nation of elders. In the New York State, the growth rate of those under 60 years of age will be only 3%, while the rate of those over 60 will be 40%. The most rapid growth is projected to occur among the oldest and most frail population groups, a rate of 28.2% of those over 85 and 16% for impaired individuals. Almost 60% will need assistance with daily living. The Senior Center was first introduced in New York City in 1943 to provide educational and recreational activities, as well as other case management services to assist the elderly members in maintaining their independence in the community. 60 years later, today, senior centers are now recognized as one of the most widely utilized services created by the Older American Act of 1965. For older persons at risk of losing their self-sufficiency, senior centers are the entry point to an array of services that will assist them as they age in place. Senior centers offer a wide range of health, education, recreation, and volunteer and other social interaction opportunities for their participants that enhance dignity, support independence, and encourage community involvement. Centers are also a resource for the entire community, providing services and information on aging and optimally provide a social environment conducive to the development of a social support system, reducing and loneliness and depression. Do you have how many minutes now?
Yeah, if you could
Almost-
reduce the,
Okay, I will.
not read this whole.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So the community centers, you remember 2012, we have that Hurricane Sandy. I know many of the community centers we use there for, to shelter the one who lost their house and all that. So it's the community centers are very useful for the community. Any ethnic group, it is open to all the ethnic groups. And also here, a community center will be created to provide local residents with programs that promote social, cultural, and spiritual interaction among people of different faith and ethnicities. It will allow for ecumenical meetings and activities for students, youth, women, and seniors. We will also provide local community-based organization with office space at the center. And I always encourage people to give back to the community. And even many of them said, we need a place to organize things so we can give back at the community where we live, work, and raise a family. I think they were saying there's a community center where we can organize people like exercise program, health, educational programs for the community, which promote a very healthy community. That's what we need, a healthy age seniors. And previously, as they mentioned, many of the seniors, many of the people, they worked whole life for the community. They need a resting time for their, also they have to live well in their seniors' time. And I see so many objections here, but I see the concerns. It's also this concern has to be also taken, we have to consider and see how we can do a better, which is feasible to the community. And also it's always, we have engineers, lawyers, everybody will have to look at the legal points of what we can, the feasibility of this community center. I request, if possible, please support this community center, and I thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and BSS staff. I am here to support ICC project. My name is Shamla Phillips. This article is especially about the opposition. They are worrying so much about when the housing comes there, the patient of the Creedmoor Hospital, especially the wandering patient, it is going to be hurt. I have worked at Creedmoor for many years, and I know the patient and staff somehow mentioned that medicated patients are wandering around the Creedmoor ground. Some have also mentioned that the project may be danger to these patients. I am an RN and worked many years at Creedmoor. The safety of the patients and other people were never jeopardized by openly leaving dangerous patients to wander in the ground. Almost all patients are located at the 22-story building right near the property. The scare tactic has no truth. The Creedmoor complex can support this project. It has the roads and it can give back to the community. There are no traffic concerns here because there are wide roads in Creedmoor. Please provide the GCL and permission to the maximum extent for senior housing. Finally, we need affordable housing. Our mayor said we need 200,000 units in 10 years. Where will this come from? If you reject this, then we are not going to reach this goal. The communities behind this project. We are the community. We will fund it. We will build it. It will be for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, BSS staff. I'm Dr. Chirel, retired from Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. I fully support building senior housing and a community center. I also want to go through why some organizations are uncomfortable with this project. Some of the organizations are not happy with the sudden change in the demographics in this area. I point to you articles in the New York Times such as The Great Divide, where a senior officer of the Queens Colony Civic Association said, within quote, "They are turning the neighborhood into a third world country," end of quote. At a joint meeting with the Belrose Commonwealth Civic Association, members were saying that these immigrants do not serve in the armed forces and that the children of immigrants bring diseases into the school. I challenge them to show diversity and have one person of color as the head of a civic association in Belrose. Please look at the words of our mayor. We need to have more housing. This is not being done by outsiders but by people. The vice president lives across the street. We are the community. Please support the ICC. Please support the variants. Please support senior housing. Thank you.
Good afternoon, respected Madam Commissioner and Commissioners and BSS staff. I am Gracie Varghese. I am an RN. I worked 26 years in Queens Hospital Center, and I am in Queens. I am a resident in Queens for almost 30 years, and I am here to support the ICC project, and I am going to talk about traffic. The master plan for Creedmoor prepared by Queens Civic Congress on page 1, paragraph 2, line 2 states that New York State originally designed Creedmoor to serve a population of 7,000. The projection for 2003 has reduced that population to under 600. Now in 2014, the population is further cut at Creedmoor. Creedmoor has its own large power plant, gas station, big water wells with underground storage tanks, incinerator, transport network, repair shop, laundry shop, and other facilities. Everything is closed and it is deteriorating. Please see the attached building usage summary. This means Creedmoor is operating below capacity. It is no longer crowded, but almost like a ghost town. There are no traffic jams at Creedmoor. Many seniors will use 24-hour Union Turnpike or Hillside Avenue, where there is public transportation. There are already senior services in the campus, including SNAP and other senior facilities. We need to build more senior housing. We need more affordable housing. The mayor's office said that we need 200,000 units of housing. How are we going to get to that number if we do not allow non-profit groups like the ICC build? Please give the ICCC a variance for community dream project. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Panikkar. I was a habilitation specialist in Bernard Feinstein Development Center. I would like to make the following statement. I support the ICCC and having senior housing built to the maximum amount. The ICCC received permission from New York State to have senior housing. Senior housing is allowed and encouraged by the Queens Borough President Creedmoor Master Plan. In the 2000 Creedmoor Master Plan, the area around Creedmoor had the highest percentage of seniors in all of New York City. The law allows seniors to live with dependents in senior housing. Now, many seniors are taking care of children or dependents with special needs. What happens to them if we do not allow them to come with their parents? We must take care of our special needs children. The Queens Interagency Council on Aging stated that senior housing is one of the top issues. The Queens Borough President's Office said that Queens has an aging population and that there is a need for more senior housing and a need for improved infrastructure for all families. I have the article supporting senior housing. Queens has the largest population of immigrant seniors. Again, we need senior housing. How we can take care of seniors if we cannot build enough senior housing to meet demand? There are more people becoming seniors in the area and more seniors are living longer. Where will they go? Where will they live? They need senior housing. The ICCC will work with established partners and we will finance the project. The ICCC will accomplish it. Please support the ICCC. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Tabbi Thalapalil. I am the President of Indian American Culture, Kerala Culture Center in Elmont. I heard about our children don't serve in the armed forces. I have two boys. Both are national merit finalists, and one went to the Air Force Academy and one into the Army in Reliance and took 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's back with no injuries, and I'm very thankful. But mainly here I am.
He gave you away your testimony?
I'm sorry I missed my copy. And here I am to represent the Indian community and the community center looking for a senior project in Creedmoor. I have attached an article where our mayor recently said that we need to do the maximum feasible extent to our affordable housing. He said that to maximize the height and the density to the place where we get. New York City is not getting bigger. We are not adding more land to the New York City, yet more people are coming here and more are staying here. Where is everyone going to live? In order to make sure everyone has a home, we have to build it. Seniors do deserve to stay in New York. We have taken care of our families and our city. The only way we can stay in the cities to have a place to live. We need a place of our own. The Creedmoor area is a great place. For that, it has enough open space. Let us do the building for our seniors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers on this item? Mr. Most, do you want to come back and?
Okay, if I could just briefly, I'd like to briefly just respond to a couple of things and try and bring it back a bit to maybe zoning and land use, sort of. Just first quickly, first, we have a letter of support that's actually from a little ways back from the Catholic Charities that we'll be submitting. Secondly, this isn't a subterfuge, and there are obviously a lot of allegations that have been flying around, like with respect to affordable housing. It's always been the intent to provide affordable housing here, but as the project has become smaller, it's becoming increasingly difficult for that component to be sort of guaranteed within the project. And it's still a goal and intent of the ICCC, but to the extent we're able to accommodate that is not right now 100% clear. And that's why that's noted and changed in my statement.
Just with respect to that, now you're working as a for-profit economic hardship analysis.
Well, that's not really why, it's still, the programmatic need is still to provide the senior housing, and there's still a not-for-profit entity, and that's why we had always presented those goals and intentions of those specific programmatic intentions and needs, but we also did show that the site we've gone to great lengths to show that the site has unique conditions and presents economic hardship. So we're sort of pursuing it on those dual paths, if you will. With respect to character, this site, a lot is made of Creedmoor at large, which is mostly zoned R32 and has a lot of buildings that obviously predate the 1961 zoning. But this site is specifically an unusual spot in that it's the only C8 piece in the large Creedmoor campus. And the C8 piece, which obviously doesn't allow residential use, allows commercial use and community facility and FARs that exceed what is actually being sought right now. So while we're seeking a use variance, the proposed FAR is .FAR. Commercial floor area ratio at this in that zone is 1.0, and community facility is up to 2.4. So the building, from a character perspective, zoning has deemed or regarded this spot, at least historically, and I understand it's got a sort of a quirky history, but historically is recognized that the site could handle more floor area than actually is being proposed. The site is an unusual shape site, and while there's a 4-story building that's being proposed, it sort of has this skinny neck that runs down and connects to the lower piece, and that's why, as I pointed out, that the lot coverage is really only about 20 to about 21% on that site. And that the building is actually located between 40 and 65, I'll get the exact dimensions, but between 45 and 65 feet away from the residential properties on 242nd. And also, as was pointed out by a number of people, is that the property has a number of different contexts in that it faces and fronts different things. It faces the Feinstein Center to the south. It has an unusual salt dome sandwiched right in the middle of it. It has some industrial artifacts of the Creedmoor campus to the west, and to the north is some an electronic, I think there's a substation there and Union Turnpike. And also, with respect to that topography, is that, as was pointed out by one of the neighbors, that 82nd Avenue is roughly at grade with the property. There are some grade changes that I think do mildly mitigate, and we did submit some indication that there are some grade changes as you head north in the property toward Union Turnpike, where the residential properties are somewhere around that mid lot line, that midline, that the properties are between 3 to 10 feet higher, somewhat mitigating complaints or concerns regarding the height of the four-story building. There was a question as to whether we have permission to use the Creedmoor roads, and we do. That is an articulated easement that's been submitted at least once to the BSA, that there are easements of access across the Creedmoor street grid to get to the property. There was also a concern about the dangerous precedent, and I think that a building like this would establish a dangerous precedent. I think that's not really correct, because this is the only property that is a C8 property. And again, the building that's being proposed is actually underbuilt than that which is permitted on the site. So I don't think there is that risk of precedent. If someone acquired another property elsewhere on the site, they wouldn't be able to point to this as a basis for additional FAR, because this isn't a variance seeking additional FAR. It's seeking a use change. We can certainly take a look at, I know Mr. Ross expressed that a desire for us to explore this townhouse concept. We can take a look at that. I don't think that density is a workable thing, but we can take a look at that. And I think I've spoken to a number of these things already. And again, also was noted that Creedmoor was designed in these various civic and master plan documents as a place where, originally designed a place where thousands of people would reside, and its population is obviously, Creedmoor has undergone significant changes as a place where only hundreds now live. And we will also, so there are a number of things relating to the GCL case that I think we will get more specific on, where our water is coming from, where our points of utility access are, and more information about the 2 points of access. And I understand there's a lot of concern about 82nd Avenue, and to the extent we can use the Creedmoor street grid as a primary point of access, I think we would be willing to do that. We can talk to the fire department and see about that. The issue there is that there's a building that creates a slight bottleneck on the plan. You can see there's a 25-foot wide point of entrance at that location. And again, as I had indicated before, it had been originally intended that this property would not use either of those points of access except solely for emergency egress, because there was going to be access directly to Union Turnpike. But that is no longer really on the table, and that forces this site to look to its only other points of access and easements that it has, and those are 82nd Avenue and that Creedmoor Road that comes in. I can respond to most of the other items, I think, in writing and in the plans. And to the extent also, I'll try and get some more details about what type of rooftop is being proposed, and to what extent to what extent we can improve any buffering between that and adjacent residential properties. But again, as I said, this is not going to be towering over those properties. There is a grade change, and it is between 40 and 60 feet away. So it's not, it's fairly distant from those backyards, which are yards before there's actually a house.
I'd like to say something about that.
Sure.
Buffering.
I'm sorry?
I know about the screening or buffering of the building. You're proposing arborvitae, which don't really grow very tall. I almost think if you could consider trees that would eventually grow high and probably screen the building from the backyards of the residences. I just think that might be a better solution, especially since portions of the site are already depressed. I don't know what the arborvitae would really do.
Okay, yeah, I thought arborvitae is sort of arborvitae are sort of a good screening plant, but it may take a while before they're there,
What
or?
do you think they get?
Well, it's indicated here, I think they were talking about planting 8-foot trees. 8-foot, that's what it shows on the GCL, but it could be a mix or, in fact, I know, we can see if there's a denser, I mean, is the desire then to create a taller or denser or?
I was thinking of something along the lines of screening the building so that as the trees grow, you really don't see the building anymore. All you see are trees.
Okay.
And do you think that you could provide us with sections through the building that take you to adjacent properties so that we can see how this building fits into the topography? I mean, I think you've done that before on the taller buildings, but I don't think we received that for this iteration.
So you mean, so something that would run in a east-west direction through the residential properties?
Correct.
So something that would run, say, from 242 to through whatever's behind my building, maybe the power plant is over there or something. that's-
Exactly, so that we can get sort of an idea of how this actually sits in the topography.
And you're going to provide us more detail on the entry at 82nd Street.
Right.
And the adjoining.
How it would work with, how it could work with Feinstein and how, and I've got to satisfy, of course, the fire department's ability to get in and out there. And again, to the extent that I can, and there's no great, I don't think there's any great intent or desire to use 82nd. If there's any way it can be avoided or somehow mitigated or limited, we can discuss on how we can do that. But again, it's all subject to, I think, in terms of being able to just get in and out, and we've only got 2 options right now.
And then you're going to give us information on what this proposed pylons on, I mean.
Yeah, I'll clarify that. That may just be, I don't know, that may be a vestige from a different plan. There's nobody's been able to tell me, I didn't realize that it was on this sheet, and when I heard that comment yesterday, I wasn't clear, and there's no signage intent here, I think, with respect to that.
And if you could also just address in general the appropriateness of this building in general to the character of the community in more detail based on the kind of comments that you heard, because there are so many different communities surrounding this site, and if you could kind of sort of weave those into the conversation about why the form and scale of this building is within the context of neighborhood character.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. So how much time do you need for that?
We could submit, I would say, toward the end of October.
Okay. So there's no hearing until the 18th of November after that, so you could submit on the 5th of November for an 18th hearing.
Opposition?
Sorry?
Fee for opposition submission?
Oh. So then, and opposition,
And I'm sorry, I will copy everyone, I have now a list of emails, we will send our submission via electronic, so everyone will have it within a day or simultaneously with my filing here.
so maybe in order to work that, if you're able to submit on the 28th of October, you think you can do that?
Sure.
And then that would give opposition a chance to submit on the 5th of November? And so,
Madam Chair?
they want 2 weeks? All right, so then the 12th of November for submission by opposition, and the 25th for the hearing. Is that okay?
Yeah. 28, 12, 25.
28, 12, 25. Got it. Hike.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
taking the.
Yeah, are we going to do the adjournments quickly?
Let's get through to the.
Yeah,
Okay, so those are the next three, right?
yeah.
Okay. Item number 18, 15311BZ, 2711 30th Avenue, Queens.
So you know
He's
about
probably outside.
Oh,
Jordan, can you call Eric into the room? Do me a favor, call Eric. This is cases. See if he's out there. Just give him a holler.
that's okay. Well, they're not, you're talking about,
Eric.
okay, so if they went to get, let's go to the next one and then,
Okay.
they're both Eric and then
That's
there's,
what I'm saying.
and then there's Rothko.
Here he is, he's right here.
Oh, he's here.
He's
Great.
coming, he's coming. That's what I'm saying.
It's coming.
We're just
That
going to do
was
the
you.
adjournments and then take a break, so we're just doing the adjournments.
Sure. Hi, Eric Polanic. Sorry I got caught outside the flood.
So, once again, number 18, 15311BZ, 2711 30th Avenue.
Hi, Eric Polanic. We've requested an adjournment. Could use approximately 4 weeks to submit to allow the continued demolition of the structure.
Okay, so again, a submission on the 4th of November for a hearing on the 18th. Okay?
We'll be happy to submit then. Thank you.
November 5th.
November 5th.
Sorry, 5th.
Item number 19, 28612BZ, 1925 Union Street, Brooklyn.
Hello again, Eric Palatnik. We're requesting approximately 2 months to submit.
So then you want to submit on December, sorry. You want to submit on December 2nd for a hearing on the 16th?
Thank you.
Item number 20, 18813BZ and 18913A, 20 Dia Court, Staten Island.
Hello again, Eric Palatnik on behalf of Rothkrug Inspector. Requesting, well, you've asked for revisions to be made to the plans. We need some time to do that if we could submit within 6 weeks.
6 weeks, okay. So again, maybe a submission on November 12th, say, for a hearing on the 25th? Does that
Thank you,
work?
that's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. We're going to take a 30-minute break. Sorry, all who came earlier.
After lunch, come on.
Imagine how we feel.
Only 30 minutes lunch?
Okay, we're back on the record. Continued hearing items on the zoning calendar. Item number 21, 25413BZ, 2881 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Marvin Mitzner for the applicant. Since our last hearing, I have provided a lesser variance alternative as was requested by Commissioner Dara Otley Brown, and which shows a negative return for that scenario. I believe that at the executive session, Commissioner Hinkson referred to a 1.5 FAR. Our last proposal is for 1.7. As a 1.7 FAR proposal, we show a very, very modest return of 155,000 annualized return. It's clear that if we dropped it down 12% to a 1.5 FAR, there would be a negative return. And I don't think it'd be burdensome for the client to have to spend the money to do a formal analysis. If the commissioner would like, I could do an anecdotal analysis and show how that with a reduction to 1.5 FAR, you'd have a reduction in income of over 1.4 million without the concomitant reduction in construction cost as well as remediation cost, and you get a negative return.
I think that correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that I had asked for the 1.5 based on the building form that you were proposing, but without the cellar.
It really is irrelevant. I've taken a look at that. If If you look at the overlay drawings that we provided to show the area of mitigation, excuse me, the primary area of mitigation is where the existing service station building is. And that covers about half of the current cellar. We've reduced the cellar size by reducing the first floor plan and cantilevering over the building. So we've already reduced the footprint of the cellar. If we reduce any further, all you're going to do is you're going to reduce the area of mitigation from 12 feet to 4 feet. That reduction in the remediation only saves you about $100,000, maybe $200,000 in mitigation costs. It doesn't compensate for the loss of 12% of your FAR. It can't.
Is there a way of showing that analysis that isn't going to be that burdensome?
Yes,
Because
yes,
the
there is.
issue, I think, is that trying to get to sort of the smallest request possible would be to show without the cellar, and be able, because you wouldn't have the extensive remediation costs that you're talking about if you just didn't have the cellar. And then see if 1.5 FAR would then at least get you close, at least as close as you are now.
If we didn't have a cellar at all, you'd probably wind up with a tall building. Because then, right now, we are shorter than the synagogue that this board approved. We're at 40 feet, the synagogue was approved at 50 feet. The synagogue is a full lot coverage building. We're not, we're providing a lot of open space. Okay, if we tamper with the cellar to the point of not having any cellar at all, okay, then we change the whole scope of the development, because now you no longer have first floor apartments that are out into the backyard. And you've got to take your FAR and move it up to a fifth floor, which we don't want to do.
Okay, so can you give us that analysis in some way that?
Yeah, we can give you an anecdotal analysis that conveys that. We can do that.
You can have a cellar on the portion.
I'm sorry?
You can have a cellar in the portion that you have to excavate.
Well, that's what I said. If we do that, well, I've looked at that, and if we do that, then I think the way you're reducing the area of deep mitigation by about 1,750 square feet, and the savings is about $100,000 to $150,000. Not enough to compensate for the reduction in FAR. But I can show that to you. We can do that until we.
I have questions about the remediation costs.
Sure.
Because when you gave us the, as of right, attached homes previously, the remediation costs were about $670,000. And this past go-round, you increased the footprint by one home. And assumingly had no cellars, or maybe you put in cellars, and your remediation costs went up to 1.1 million, which really, there was no correlation. And I know the consultant says using some standard formula, but I never knew we had a standard formula. So I would like to see the details, not in great, but just this much for testing, this much for the vapor barrier, this much for excavation. The current cost you gave us, 1.1 million for one additional two-family home footprint, didn't make sense to me.
Well, that's because there was an error that was made earlier. When we first did the mitigation analysis without a cellar, we took a 2-foot excavation. You can't do 2 feet. If you do a slab with footings, you can't. And we've been told since then that you got to do at least 4, if not 5 feet. 5 feet is standard. We've been using 4 feet, and that accounts for the difference between the first iteration and this one.
Well, that's just maybe where you're putting it, it's a trench. And some of that might already be in the profile that you're already.
You can't, okay.
It's just your remediation costs to me are all over the map. So I would like, if you're going to do another lesser variance, I would like a detailed evaluation of the remediation costs.
What we'll do is we'll lay out the theory of the remediation costs, so it's consistent.
The quantities.
And the quantities, right. Okay, we can do that.
Any other? Commissioner Otley Brown, do you have any comment?
No. Right, are there any speakers on this item? Okay. Let me think. Okay, so can you submit on the, let's see, we have too much. Submit on the 5th of November for the 18th?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 22, calendar number 28313BZ, 4930 20th Avenue, Brooklyn. Alexander Levkovich.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, Madam Commissioners. If you remember last hearing, we had the issue with the Department of Buildings that initially rejected our request to have the parking not required for this unit. And we felt a mistake was made in their classification. It is a use 9 instead of a PCE, which is what it is. Thankfully, the Department of Buildings corrected itself. And I know you received the corrected ZRD1 clarification that said that parking is not required. I attended yesterday's review session, and I understand, Madam Chairperson, you raised some concerns factually as to the patronage for this physical culture establishment in conjunction, which you noticed to be some congestion in the neighborhood, and you wanted just to get some kind of information on how that's addressed and how we feel parking should not be required. Now, I did submit a letter several months ago explaining a lot of these issues, which I extracted portions of the letter which I submitted yesterday in response to the review session. I'm not sure if you got a chance to see that letter, but I'll just go over briefly the main points here. Number one, this was obviously an issue that was raised in the community board. There was concern about parking, and throughout our discussions with the community board, they were very comfortable, and we got a very strong majority in approving this gym at that location, notwithstanding some of the concerns some people raised about the parking. Secondly, that particular location is an N1-1 zoning, but it's pocketed within a residential and a commercial area that is very comprehensively serviced by public transportation. There's an F train about 200 feet away. There's a B11 right there on Avenue I. 2 blocks north is one bus, 2 blocks south is another bus. It's an area that has a very established public transportation system that could be used to access this particular premises. Next, right across the street is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-a-day-a-week ShopRite, which is zoned for, I think, about 312 parking spots. So a lot of the congestion in that area has to do with that ShopRite, and none of the patrons of the ShopRite utilize the on-street parking that's available over there because of the very expansive parking lot that they have. Moreover, on McDonald's Avenue, which is about 200 feet away, there is metered parking, and about 750 feet, I think southwest, there's a cemetery where no one really parks there at all throughout the day. There's always spots available that's not metered parking. Moreover, the private residences, which are within a 400 square foot radius, all have either 1 or 2 car parking. Around the corner on 50th Street, there's actually an easement going behind all the joined 2-family residences where there's a garage and there's space for another car to park for all those residences over there. In terms of the patronage of this particular physical culture establishment, from my discussions with the owners, they said they did a study. Their main target is people in the local community, people that will be able to access it by foot or by bicycle. And to the extent that there's people coming there, not by foot or by bicycle, a large chunk of the patronage will be going there through the public transportation that is available. And as a final point, and this is something that I've been addressing with the board throughout the several hearings, which I know the board may have acknowledged, that there would be a tremendous hardship in this scenario from our client to have to build some kind of parking. The lot itself is fully built out. It would be impossible, it would be, not impossible, but it would be a tremendous financial hardship to have to go underneath or to build ramps to park on the roof. We feel very strongly that parking should not be required here. And I'm hoping that we would not be required to provide some kind of official parking analysis and that you would accept these points that I'm raising here in light of the fact that it's been quite a lengthy process with the buildings department to finally get it approved. So I don't know if you have any questions, but
Where does the data come from that you're relying on in terms of how people arrive and where the locations of other parking alternatives are? Is that data that you've put together, or you have a consultant who's working on that? Or how do you know that where there are other parking spaces and what the cause?
well, as an initial matter, first of all, I had a conversation with the owner of the premises. And, they've made, their detailed business planning to evaluate their market base. So, they've estimated to me a significant majority of their patronage will be people in the local area. They're not looking to do any advertising at all, which would suggest that a large number of the patronage will be people that observe it by being in the area. In addition to, I live in the neighborhood myself, so I frequent that ShopRite all the time. Well, at least I used to live there for about 10 years until I moved a few months ago. But I know that area sometimes has difficulty with the congestion, but that's strictly because of the ShopRite. In addition to the ShopRite, across the street from the ShopRite is another 24-hour grocery store which feeds off. And even though people are not really supposed to be using the ShopRite parking lot for that 24-hour grocery store, they do that anyway. There's never an issue with parking in that neighborhood at all. And in addition to that, the public transportation is apparent from just observing the area, and we did submit as part of our plans, a diagram showing the public transportation that's in the immediate vicinity of the premises.
And also, so can you add to that then? Something that shows where the other parking locations are, like there's parking for the ShopRite and those kinds of things, just to indicate on a plan
Absolutely.
where the other parking areas are?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be good. Does anyone else have questions? Okay, are there any speakers on this item? Okay, so if you submitted some of it already, but you have to submit it formally, right?
Yes, okay.
And then if you could just add that.
Would it be possible to close the hearing?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
So we will then close, so a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Okay, and then can you submit everything by the 7th of October? Official submission?
You just want the submission outlining what I just relayed to you in terms of okay, absolutely, yeah.
And your written submission formally submitted. So
Okay.
October 7th, you can
Okay.
do that? And so for decision on the 21st.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Item number 23, 4814 BZ, 174 Falmouth Street, Brooklyn.
Hello, good afternoon again, Eric Palatnik. We attended your review session yesterday, and we heard your board's comments. Specifically in discussion, you brought up the second floor balcony. You weren't sure if its depth exceeded 6 feet, and a possible suggestion was to include that as a ghosted in and add a note that the balcony would be subject to approval by Department of Buildings.
It's also supposed to be unenclosed, so no roof.
Okay. And we'd be happy to do that.
And the balcony zoning regulation is 23-131.
Okay.
Make sure it complies with that.
Okay, and we're going to include the note, though, that it's ultimately, though, subject to approval at Department of Buildings, right? Okay. The next question your board asked for is to provide a streetscape to address neighborhood character, and I guess you'd like to see a further streetscape than we've already provided to you, is what I'm assuming, because the plan submitted did include a streetscape.
Hold on a second. Yeah,
And I think it's drawing.
Oh,
That's all they show.
yeah, definitely a further streetscape. The whole idea of a streetscape is to show whether, within the context of the block, the proposal is in character with block,
Okay,
right?
we-
So that's both sides of the street. Normally, you do it just with a photo montage or a panorama photo, and then you drop your building into that.
Okay, so you'd be content with a photo montage?
Sure, that's even better. Yeah, you don't have to draw every building on the block, no.
Well, sometimes in the past, we were asked to draw every building on the block, so.
Okay.
It's not the past anymore, though, so.
Time is now.
Time is now, so we're getting used to it. We're catching on quick. The final question you had is, which I wasn't able to get with the architect last night to get the answer, is the building being fully excavated? And that I could find out for you, get the answer.
The sections in the plans say different things.
I'll get confirmation on that.
Okay. Any other comments? Are there any speakers on this item? Okay, so how much time would you,
We could submit within, well, it's the holidays, so and most of the people involved are Jewish, so 2 weeks.
oh, what, is there an opposition attorney?
There was an opposition.
Oh, to give that person time. Yeah, so apparently.
Oh, I think that was for, I apologize, I overheard. I think that was for the next two applications. You're talking about Mr. Klein's office?
No, that's a Falmouth, wasn't it?
In Falmouth, that we were told, that you have opposition from an attorney?
No, I think it was for Mr. Klein's office, correct?
See 71st Street, my apologies.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, all right.
That's okay. I wish I could say the opposition wasn't for it on every case I had.
Right.
Pretty sure it was for the next one.
Okay, so how much time do you think you need to submit?
We could submit in 2 weeks, right after the holidays.
2 weeks, so 1, 2. So that, we have a lot of, but I don't think we have much more, so could we close on this? Yeah, so I think then we could close, and then you submit on the 21st, is that good?
21st
Of
of October, yes. Yes.
For a decision on the 28th.
Thank you. Yes, that's great.
Okay.
Motion closed.
Motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson,
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez.
Aye.
Commissioner Ali Brown.
Aye.
New cases, item number 24, calendar number 30-12BZ, 142-41 Roosevelt Avenue, Queens, New York City Board of Standards and Appeals.
Hello again, Eric Palatnik.
You want to start?
The only start I have is I was as confused as you may be, or I've understood the little questions that you've had about why this application was denied in the first instance. It went through the hearing process at the community board, it went through extensive meetings, an extensive list of conditions were agreed to. They seemed satisfied, I think they voted to approve it, if I'm not mistaken, with a list of conditions. The borough president approved it, and it went through a series of hearings here, which the remaining commissioners can tell you about. I think it went through 3 or 4 hearings, and when it came time to a decision, the decision was to deny it, which had caught me off guard at the time. Didn't see I didn't see it coming at the time. And that's what's brought us to where we are today. Obviously, we filed the appeal in state Supreme Court, and it was overturned. But the plans that we submitted contained a litany of conditions that we were happy to adhere to. And if I could provide any clarification on anything, I'd be happy to.
So what I read the transcripts of the hearings, and what I was getting from it, and that the reason that the board did not believe that it was an appropriate grant was because the level of mitigation wasn't sufficient to address their main concerns, which had to do with noise and light and exhaust and its imposition on the property just immediately adjacent and all of the windows.
Right.
So in terms of conforming or complying with the court's direction, which indicated that we should consider mitigation, it seems to me that maybe what we could be doing is looking at further mitigation that would address those things in a way that's more persuasive. My first reaction is that, for example, what was shown on the drawings, there was a November submission, where I do see that there's a list and there's some arrows that point to some of the things. On the perimeter, that's directly opposite that residential building, there's a 4-foot-high masonry wall.
Right.
And then mounted to that is opaque glass.
Right.
The opaque glass intention is to shield light from the cars, and the 4-foot-high wall is apparently for acoustical purposes. So my first reaction is that 4 feet isn't much in terms of acoustical purposes, and there was some discussion at some point that the acoustical wall would be 8 feet, and it, for whatever reason, got dropped down to 4.6. So it seems to me if you had an 8-foot-high acoustical wall, obviously that's a better buffer, because the cars are taller than 4 feet these days. They're all SUVs and such things, right? That's a pretty short car, actually, 4 feet. So if we just talk about better acoustical separation on that wall, but then another part of it has to do with the reality that, everybody is looking down into the parking area, and that sound sort of travels in all different kinds of ways that are not necessarily going to be confined by the wall. Perhaps if the plans were modified to allow for a planting zone, since you're having to restructure the roof anyway to support the cars, restructuring a planting bed along that perimeter, so that's trees of some significant height. I was kind of thinking cypress trees, something that really grows tall and dense could be planted along there to function as a sound barrier and muffler. That was, or a buffer, really. And then one of the other things that's shown on the drawings is an analysis showing cars going up and down the ramps, and that their low beams would be restricted by a low wall that's on the rest of the perimeter of the building and this 4'6" wall. But why isn't a high beam also considered? People turn their cars on and the beam is the beam, right? And if it's who knows, you can't really control that.
Right.
Why isn't a high beam also tested? And so that seems to me that would change the height of the glass barrier, the opaque glass barrier. The other thing is that that the lighting shows floodlights that are mounted on high poles. Those are obviously a source of extreme light, and there isn't any way of shielding that because they're quite tall, right? So for a resident who's directly across, all the way up until whatever time the garage closes, the parking lot closes, there'll be daylight essentially in their apartments. So it's very common, actually, particularly in Europe, for parking lots to be lit at a lower level.
So sort of like a downlighting.
Downlighting that's located on the walls, and that's also located actually embedded into the surface of the lot. It provides plenty of lighting, and you don't need to flood the entire parking lot.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other concern that was expressed by residents was issue about the exhaust from fumes. I'm not really sure how that's being dealt with, because you don't want the fumes to dissipate into the air. You want them dealt with at a low level as the exhaust is occurring, that it stays down and goes directly into the exhaust system. So I'm not sure how that was actually dealt with on the plan.
Yeah, I don't think that was addressed. I don't think there is any physical way to contain the exhaust from an outdoor parking lot.
But actually, if you install essentially suction systems that are operating while the the parking lot is in operation, then any startup of a motor will automatically have, if you had grills of some type that are underneath where the cars are parked, and they suck in.
You had me with most everything up until that. I think that puts things into a whole nother level of engineering and
Well, you could look, I'd say it's worth looking at, technology has changed a lot. There's a lot of opportunities for things like that.
We can. That one I'll talk about with every. I don't know if we can, but we do have the support of that building to the left that you're protecting. They've signed, they're a co-applicant on the application, they've signed the memorandum of understanding. And
That's understood. but
everything
At the
that-
same time, that was the board, it's different than the residents. The people who agreed to those terms are different than the people who are actually living in the apartments.
Right, but it is the owner of the building, and it did go up through the court system, this application. It starts with a suction system for the outdoor exhaust. I can only imagine the intricacies of designing a system like that and the costs involved with it and the functioning of it. I mean, I've been driving around New York City for the last 20 years. I don't think I've ever seen a system even like that in any parking lot I've ever pulled into.
Well, so that's part of the
so-
issue of the rooftop parking next to residents. That's why the board had problems with it.
Right, no, and I respect the board's
Yeah.
concerns with it, and I think everything you asked for is fairly reasonable. I'm not sure quite how the trees on a rooftop really work out so well on, big trees on the edge of a rooftop adjacent to an alleyway. That I'm a little concerned about. I'm imagining a heavy windstorm or a snowstorm and trees toppling into windows of buildings next door into the alleyway down below. But I'm sure we could provide some landscaping. It's just the ventilation installing to catch outdoor exhaust, I think, is going to be I know it's going to be very difficult.
Well, take a
But-
look, speak to your engineer. I mean, the other part of it is you're going to be building a taller wall. Ideally, maybe that will actually have some effect on the fumes.
Yeah, I think the wall will help, and the landscaping, and we could take a look at the ventilation. I just don't want to sound optimistic on it.
Okay.
And the lower lights.
And the lower lights, yes.
Yeah. Anyone else, ideas, comments? Okay. Are there any speakers on this item? Okay. So, how much time do you think you need on this?
If we could have approximately 7 weeks to submit, only because the architect has to be re-engaged to redraw the plans, and that's going to take a couple of weeks.
Okay. So is the submission on November 18th too soon?
No, that's great.
Okay, and hearing on December 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 25, calendar number 32313BZ, 127 East 71st Street, Manhattan. Eric Palatnik.
Hi, Eric Palatnik. We wanted to pass up for the board because we attended your review session yesterday, and one of the things we heard was that you'd like to see clearer pictures of the rear. So one of the handouts that we just passed up to you shows the board that's on the left-hand side right there, and gives you an idea of the rear yard of the property. This is the building at issue. This is the setback area. This is the building that's on the left side. This would be on the east side of the property that extends out the neighboring property to the right. And this picture here shows you our building that shoots out right here and shows you the building that's on the west side of the property in the rear that juts out. So as you can see, our property is the only one of the three that are contiguous with one another. We're in the middle, and we sort of have the donut hole, so to speak, that's in the middle. And the application that we're here for today is for a single-family home. We should all be so lucky to have a single-family home like this. That is asking a waiver of the lot coverage requirements, and we're asking for a 77% lot coverage. And we're achieving that by essentially this plan here. This gives you the section, the proposed is on this side, and you have this in your plan format also. And the existing is here. And what we're showing you here is that we are taking off about, I think it's 2 feet off of the rear extension that's at the 2-story height. And you can see how the building jigs and jags as it goes up, the existing building. We're essentially evening everything off, as you're seeing here, coming out to this level, basically, and evening off the entire rear of the building. So the entire rear of the building is no longer going to have this irregular shape, which you could see here on the other plan sheet, which we passed up to you. This shows you existing what's occurring. And as you can see, what we're starting to do is square off the building at the first 2 floors of the basement, and at the first floor plan, we're filling in that little nook that you see here at the lower levels. And then when you get to the 3rd floor plan and above, excuse me, the 2nd floor and above, you're going straight line enlargement straight up. And that's
Off the L.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We've appeared before the community board. We just recently approved the application. It's at Landmarks right now. The architect was hoping to be here. He was waiting for your hearing, but unfortunately, Landmarks is holding their hearing at the exact same time. So he just ran over there. But Landmarks is very happy. They came out and did a site inspection of the property, and they were happy with the property. From a landmark perspective, I know you have a landmark history. From a landmark perspective, this building was not very attractive when before we started doing the work on it. Right now, it was built in sort of an odd time. Didn't really reflect the character of the neighborhood, so to speak, especially for the landmark district. So it shoots out in the front. Other than the other homes, it sits out about 3 feet further in the front. And its facade design was really not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. So Landmarks was thrilled to have a redesign on the facade so that we could put a front on it that is more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And work has started at the property already. Whatever can be done, not subject to the board's approval. There has been ongoing work, so if you've been out to the property, there's been some excavation going on and some interior demolition and of the like. And we're waiting on your board's action to continue.
Other comments?
Does it impact any windows on the adjacent building?
It doesn't impact any windows except for one. On this, there's a picture here. The building that's to the east, at the 4th floor, you could just sort of make it out right there, has one window, which we don't know what that window is for. We haven't had access to that building. I'd imagine Mr. Klein may tell us when he responds to his the paperwork, because I know that he's representing the adjacent property owner now, and that's the property that he's representing. But I don't know what that window is for. I will say this, the window is well beyond even a 30-foot setback from the rear yard. It's probably, the window's probably 40, 45 feet into the property. So it's something that even if there was an as-of-right enlargement, if it could be done, I think it would still take out the window.
And it's directly on the property line.
It's on the property line, it's on the 4th floor, so I don't know what purpose it serves or what it's ventilating.
Could you perhaps indicate on your plan that it's going to be a single-family home? It looks like the 4th floor is still arranged as a separate apartment, so the plans read as if it's a 2-family? And make a notation that the greenhouse should be approved at DOB. We're calling it a greenhouse, and that's sort of a term of art for DOB. So a notation to that effect. And can you show a roof plan so that we can see access to the roof? There's a new elevator going in.
Yes.
And like to see what that bulkhead looks like, because I think you probably have a height limitation, do you not?
We do, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I believe it's a 60-foot total height limit.
60-foot height limit to be observed. Just tell us, and I think you probably do actually overshoot that, but tell us why you're permitted to do so, if you're permitted to do so.
Understood.
Go ahead.
In the area study, could you just do like a little, a drawing, a plan drawing of what the size of the other rear yard?
I saw that was your comment. I know that Mr. Rasmussen did it with a sort of giving you like a grading of sort with the depth and then writing it. And I think what I'm hearing is you want to see like almost on a radius diagram what you see, which is the outline of the building.
And the heights of the buildings in the rear yard, the rear area. For the area that is included in the area study, but just to, I guess, present the data in a different way.
So the heights of the buildings that abut us to the rear?
Yes.
The ones, do you want the ones that are on the left and the right side from the front also?
And to facing 72nd Street also.
Right, so the two on the left and the one on the left and the right.
Photos,
The photos of,
that rear area.
The rear area opposite, right?
right, but we'll get you some. It's, starts, maybe the best vantage point would be from our building to go up.
On the roof.
Up onto the roof and take it from that, okay. So everybody's been trying to take
Just to
it.
make clear what the relationship of the other Ls are to this property. That's really,
Sure, I understand.
and then your statement of findings, you
Oh,
need to add the
7303, we'll add that.
Anyone else? Are there any speakers? Please.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Martin Anthony White. The applicant's property is immediately behind my house, and I'm representing myself here today. I object to this application to make alterations that are already substantially complete for the following reasons. These alterations incorporate a second-floor terrace that overlooks the second-floor windows of my house and my private garden. And thereby they're destroying my quiet enjoyment of my property. And if there are purchasers of this property, it will enable them to look directly into some of my bedrooms. And secondly, my property is currently on the market for 41 million. And I'm obviously concerned that this applicant will affect the value of the property. The rear portion that we've been talking about here is building beyond the allowable lot. And I think that will discourage buyers and devalue my property. So I would urge you to reject the application.
Just a question, are you toward the rear or are you adjacent?
I am towards the rear.
Towards the rear. Are you aware that they're cutting off their L? They're actually increasing the size of the rear yard?
I am aware that the way that it looks, there's a lot of tarpaulin covering things and whatever, but the way that it looks now, that there's going to be this greenhouse effect that goes into the back garden. So the end result will be that the property will be closer to my property.
Right, so perhaps the applicant can share the reality, which is you're going to have a much bigger backyard back there than you currently have, so, actually.
Yeah, and as you can appreciate, to myself or a potential buyer, the backyard doesn't matter much. It's the property that's looking down on you that's the big thing here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers? Just one second. Okay, so did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I will speak with the gentleman afterwards, and I'll share a copy of the plans with him and
That would be nice
explain to him.
neighborly activity, okay.
And I do know that this was the application that Mr. Klein's office
Right.
wanted some time on.
Okay. So what we can do here is we can close and leave the record open for Mr. Klein to make his submission.
Thank you.
So for a motion to close,
Chair Promoter,
aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson,
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez.
Aye.
Commissioner Ollie Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We need dates, though.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I didn't want to be the one to tell you that we needed dates, but
okay, so how much time do you need for any kind of?
we could submit within 3 weeks. If you could give us 3 weeks to submit, that would be
Okay,
great.
so again, submit on the 5th and hearing on the 18th. You have a lot to do on the 18th.
And the opposition.
Oh, and opposition, rats, okay. Submit on the,
November 5th?
yeah, the 5th, and opposition submits on the 12th, and hearing on the 18th. Is that enough time? Okay. And this decision on the 18th.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 26, calendar number 5314BZ, 12 West 27th Street, Manhattan, Evolution Muay Thai.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. Alexander Tuttle for the applicant, Evolution Muay Thai, seeking a special permit to operate as a physical culture establishment at 12 West 27th Street. We attended the executive review session yesterday. We noted a few comments by the board. I wanted to address those comments. One was a question as to the hours of operation. The gym, a martial arts gym, is open 7 days a week. Monday through Friday, it is open 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. There are classes during the day from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. On Saturday, the gym is open from 12 to 5, and on Sunday, it's open from 12 to 3. So the classes only take place during a portion of the operating hours. The second issue that was raised was concerning some complaints that were raised from the notice of objection, in particular the smell coming from the gym. That was raised at the community board hearing, and at the hearing, we identified several solutions that we were going to implement, and we have done so since May of 2014. The first was, as you walk into the gym, there's a very expensive exhaust system that is located above from the ceiling that drops down, and we installed charcoal filters into the exhaust. The second implemented solution was the mats that were previously in the gym were porous mats, and that allowed for a certain amount of moisture to permeate into the air and cause an odor. They have since been replaced with very expensive non-porous mats, and the odor is drastically reduced. And in fact, we're only aware of one tenant in the building who's raised any complaints, and I believe that should be resolved as of today. The third,
Just to
go
go,
ahead.
it should be resolved as of today. What should be-
Given the solutions that we've done over the past.
So the tenant complaint, though, that you've had, is it since you've installed the exhaust and the new mat?
Not that we're aware of. No.
Okay. So that complaint predated your installation of the exhaust? and-
As far as we understand, yes.
Can you check that, please?
Sure. And then I believe there was a final question as to the fire protection measures, but I wanted to clarify what the board wanted to know about that before I can address that.
I guess that sort of had been my question, whether or not you are complying with fire department regulations that typically they want to see in PCEs. So that you've got pull stations, that you're sprinklered where you're supposed to be.
Everything is code compliant, consistent with the fire code and the Department of Building Code.
Did you give us a statement to that effect?
Yes,
Did
it's in
you?
the statement
Okay.
of facts and findings.
All right, sorry, apologize.
And when did you open?
2010,
What month?
May of 2010 was the signed lease.
I'm a little curious about the reason, so in terms of the nuisance of the odor, it's kind of a peculiar question to be asking. But normally, gyms, regularly clean, and so there really isn't an issue about that. It may
Yes.
be the case for the day, but at the end of the day, they're properly cleaned. So we would want you to make submit a material from the owner that commits to maintaining the gym and regularly replacing the mats and keeping these filters cleaned.
Sure, I can tell you that exhaustive efforts are made to make this gym clean. It is a martial arts studio, so everyone is barefoot, and there is intense training during the classes, so there's a lot of perspiration that goes on during these classes, and everything has been done from soup to nuts to make sure that it is clean. And I can't even, I'm a member of the gym as well, and I cannot smell it anymore.
You can't because you're in the gym.
Possibly, but I do come from my work clothes to go in the elevator, to go into the gym, and I don't smell it, so.
Okay. Are there any speakers on this item? Okay, so can you submit, it was the fire plan to submit and a statement about the cleanliness.
Well, he said that he actually did submit.
Oh, you submitted a
Right,
statement?
the statement of facts and findings contains
That
the
is-
representation as to the
I apologize
code.
because I missed it in his
Oh, I
facts and
see.
findings.
Okay, you
Correct.
did submit. Okay.
And who would the statement as to the cleanliness come from?
It would be from the owner, just a statement by the owner acknowledging his responsibility to maintain the gym in a
Okay, would it be
sanitary-
sufficient if I had the owner make that representation to the board?
It'd be better if it was in writing, so we
Okay.
have it as part of our
Fair enough.
system program.
Fair enough.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so then I think we can close this and schedule a decision. So for a motion to close,
Chair Promoter,
aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson,
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye. Okay, so if you could submit the materials in a week, say, we could have the decision on the 21st of October?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Item number 27, calendar number 9714BZ, 22 through 26 East 14th Street, Manhattan, Warshore, Bernstein.
Good afternoon, Josh Rhinesmith for the applicant. This is an application for a special permit to permit the operation of a physical culture establishment on a small portion of the existing building's ground floor and the majority of the cellar level. The fitness center will be operated as a Planet Fitness health club. I believe there were some questions yesterday regarding uses within the building. I noticed as I was preparing for the hearing that the certificate of occupancy that we submitted was a temporary dated June of 1998. The COO, a final that was issued the following month in July, actually did not include some of the gymnasium type uses that were referenced at yesterday's executive session. It's all classroom and office space. Currently, the entire upper floors of the building are used for office space by the new school. And the ground floor daycare center use that is referenced on the CFO is no longer there. It had been used by a pharmacy, a Duane Reade pharmacy, and I think you can see that in the photos that we submitted with the application, but that pharmacy has since vacated the premises. So the only tenant as of now for the ground floor will be the Planet Fitness use. But the entire actual fitness center where workout is conducted is all on the cellar level. So there is going to be a level of retail between the fitness center uses in the cellar and the second floor offices.
So it's Planet Fitness Retail that's at the...
No, I'm sorry, it's going to be a new retail use.
Oh,
The Planet Fitness space on the ground floor is only 632 square feet. It is literally just for a reception area and then access to the own internal elevator and stairwell to the cellar floor. There's also a question about required landmarks approvals. The subject building is a designated landmark. We have already obtained approval for the interior build-out as well as the storefront renovation. We have an application at Landmarks pending for a certificate of appropriateness for our signage. I actually had anticipated having it prior to the hearing, but it hasn't been issued yet. I do expect that within the next, I would hope week, but certainly 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. And the gym, is it currently operating?
No, it is not.
Okay. Right, any other questions on this? Are there any speakers on this? Okay, so since we need to wait for the signage, I guess, how much time do you think, Billy?
Maybe I'll ask 3 weeks for submission, just to be safe.
Okay, so, and then giving our hearing schedule, then how about a submission on the 5th of November and hearing on the 18th? And I think we can close this also, right? So for a motion to close?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez.
Aye.
Commissioner Ali Brown.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Item number 28, calendar number 10514BZ, 1224 East 27th Street, Brooklyn, Louis C. Garfinkel.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana from Garfinkel Architects. Regarding yesterday's...
What's your last name?
Valencia. Diana Valencia. Regarding yesterday's executive session for this single-family extension, single-family that's requesting an extension at the rear for first and second. We were asked to revise the facts and findings because the minimum side yard isn't correct, so we're gonna resubmit and correctly show that in the facts and findings. In the attic, we were asked to show the portion that's counted as floor area, so again, we will submit that. And then we were asked to show the condition of the neighbors at the rear and the garage heights. So again, we're gonna submit that.
Great. Okay. Any other questions there? Is there anyone to speak on this item? Okay, perfect. How much time do you need to submit?
A week.
A week?
Do it a week.
Okay. So can you submit by the 7th of October?
7th of October. Okay.
For a decision on the 21st. Okay, so we can close this. For a motion to close?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez.
Aye.
Commissioner Ali Brown.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 29, calendar number 13014BZ, 605 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan. Francis R. Angelino.
Good morning, good afternoon, Commissioners. Frank Angelino, on behalf of the applicant. In response, there will be no signs, decal signs or signs whatsoever on the 5th floor of this facility, on the 5th floor, windows facing 5th Avenue. Nor will there be any signs or signboards or anything else on the ground floor.
Do you know if we already have DOI sign off on this? I don't know. Okay, so he's not here, okay. Well, assuming that we can get the sign off, we can actually close this and schedule for decision. Are there any speakers on this item?
May I make a request respectfully, Commissioners? Through circumstances out of control of the operators, they have been unable to do anything with this space, which has been leased and unoccupied. And if respectfully requested, if you can have a decision understanding DOI is necessary by October 7th, it would be deeply appreciated.
October 7th. Is that okay? Okay. We can do that.
Thank you.
Since there's no submissions, so, okay, so we can close and schedule for decision on October 7th.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the staff's time and that involves. Thank you.
So for a motion to close?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson.
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 30, calendar number 13214BZ, 441 Rockaway Avenue, Brooklyn, Warshaw, Bernstein.
Josh Rhinesmith, on behalf of the applicant. This is another 7336 special permit application to permit the operation of the physical culture establishment within a one-story and cellar building at the premises. I believe yesterday there were some questions about patronage, where individuals come from. This operator of Planet Fitness actually operates all New York City locations. So the information that I have and I've placed into the application is taken from all of their locations, typically in neighborhoods such as this, which are in dense areas. Practically everybody walks or takes a bike to the fitness center. These fitness centers are trying to be neighborhood destinations where people are either stopping by before or after work, or neighbors from the immediate vicinity travel to the fitness center by either walking or bicycle. And I believe the demographics of this area do not support a large population that owns vehicles. So we really expect nobody to actually be traveling to the fitness center by car. I think one of the requests yesterday afternoon was to put access to mass transit on an area map. I believe the area map is not going to show all the subway locations, but what we can do is create a little bit larger of a map using Google or Zola and identify where the subway lines are and where the entrances are in relation to the premises.
Any other questions?
Yes, I had a question about the rear of the property.
Mm-hmm.
On A200, you say that there's no facade work proposed at the rear, and Tatford Avenue has residential on the opposite
Across
side
the
of the
street.
street, and it's in pretty bad condition.
Okay.
So I think you're going to have to do some facade work.
Is it more in terms of paint peeling, or is
There's
it?
paint peeling,
Okay.
the back wall is chipped, I guess it's a block wall.
Mhm.
It should be made smooth, repaint it. You might have to do something with the door back there as well. There's fencing that, really needs to be.
I will ask the applicant to take a look at that. I haven't seen the rear, so I'll get some photographs and we'll do what's necessary.
It also appears as if there might be barbed wire on that roof. There is framework for that, and it's directly across from homes.
Yeah, and that was something I was able to speak to the applicant about. They've actually had an issue, Planet Fitness, during their build-out, but primarily the prior tenant, with people climbing onto the roof and taking metal components from the HVAC equipment, the copper coiling, and so that was continually being stolen. And that was the reason that the fence is on the top. I actually received pictures of the rooftop last night, and they have, in addition to the fencing and barbed wire, put metal grates over all of the HVAC units in an effort to prevent that. I can submit you documentation, those photographs showing that that is in fact the case.
Right, but so if you have cages over the HVAC and you have a fence, do you really also need the unsightly barbed wire?
Well, I believe people can cut through the cages. I'll ask.
Only because you have other commercial buildings on that block and none of them have barbed wire.
I will bring it up. I'm relaying what the issue was and what I was informed by my client. I will discuss this with him and see if there's anything that can be done.
That rear door is only going to be used for emergency?
Absolutely, yes.
You're not open yet?
No, we are not open. That will only be used as a second means of egress in emergency circumstances.
Okay, so with respect to these so for example, with respect to the fencing and the painting or repair of the facade, if you could submit a response to that in writing and how you're going to address those issues.
Absolutely, and this is something that I'll have to clear not only with the applicant, but also the building owner, as I'm not sure who's obligated to do what under the lease. So it may take a little time to sort that out.
Okay. Are there any speakers on this? Okay, so then, do you think you will know by like the 5th of November whether?
Yeah, absolutely.
So submit on the 5th, then hearing on the 18th?
That sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 31, calendar numbers 206 through 21214BZ. Department of Housing Preservation Development.
Hi, thank you for having us here today. I'm Amy Peterson. I'm the Director of the Housing Recovery Office, and we're here to present 7 properties in Queens for special permit 6492. They're all in Queens Community District 14. The New York City Build It Back program, and I've been here in front of a few of you before, but not all of you, is assisting homeowners, landlords, and renters to recover from the storm. We are offering a number of different pathways. One of those pathways is to rebuild people's homes. We anticipate rebuilding 500 to 750 homes in the Sandy impacted areas. And we have been working closely with the Board of Standard and Appeals to develop an expedited process, and are grateful to the board and staff for that work. We're here to present the 7 homes and the work that we've done to move them forward, and the ability to expedite these through the process will allow these homeowners to start construction in November, which is great. We're really starting to make progress on the rebuilding, and it's part of the Build It Back program. Deborah Morris, the Director of Planning and Resiliency at HPD, Director of Resiliency Planning, will speak in details about the homes that we're presenting. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the board for this opportunity to present Build It Back's clusters in Queens Community District 14. We attended yesterday's review session, and I have a few corrections and clarifications. I did want to know if the board wanted me to present the full presentation, or if we should just leap to corrections and
You could, okay, just a quick run through
Sure.
of the presentation?
Absolutely.
And then the specific corrections.
Spacebar.
Barring technical difficulties.
So as Amy mentioned, Build It Back is a program that serves, has 26,000 registrants. The majority of them are in Queens. And next slide. Registrants for the program have 5 potential offerings. There are repairs and elevations, which elevate the existing structure, reconstructions, which is rebuilding a brand new structure, reimbursement for repairs completed, and acquisition of the property. Next slide. So in the single-family reconstruction process, which takes place at HPD, the homeowner goes through a registration process, document review, a damage assessment, and then they get to choose their option. Homeowners, when they're in the rebuild process and receive their option, they're not informed of the complexities of rebuilding, and we try and make it as simple for them as possible when they get to their document signing. So one of the things we've worked through here, next slide, is a way to try and resolve land use issues. In Build It Back, there are about 700 properties eligible for reconstruction, and we determined through analysis that about 100 of them would require some sort of zoning relief. So periodically, we had our first cluster, which we filed in July, and we're here to you today applying batches for special permit 6492. Our permits are clustered by geography in order to simplify community process and also to pair properties that are alike with each other. So to address the large volume of homes requiring reconstruction in the storm-affected communities and to meet the time limitations of CDBG DR funding, HPD has been using standardized prototypes. To work with the BSA, we've waived several procedures to make it possible to use these prototypes and have them ease through the application process. HPD had requested the board waive the required receipt of a zoning objection from the Department of Buildings and waive the owner's authorization. In preparation for the filing, all application materials were reviewed by staff at DCP and DOB and checked for correctness. Because the applications are being filed on behalf of all Build It Back, Rebuild participants who need this waiver, reducing the owner's authorization simplifies the administrative burden of the program while providing a necessary service that anticipates the need of participants. The Build It Back review process includes extensive collection of homeowner documentation, including proof of ownership of the property on or before October 28, 2012. For this reason, HPD requests a waiver of title search and property history documentation, as an executive order and zoning relief for Sandy-affected properties permits the reconstruction of non-compliant structures that sustain qualifying damage from Hurricane Sandy regardless of the age or origin of the non-compliance. Also, in order to simplify notification requirements, HPD has geographically clustered these applications. Reconstruction of existing noncompliance is permitted pursuant to 5441, permitted reconstruction, damage, or destruction of a noncompliant building, and these noncompliances may be increased in height pursuant to 64723, noncompliant single and two-family residences. Noncompliances in rear yards may also be increased horizontally by the further penetration of the residence in rear yard to permit stair access in the front pursuant to 64722. Single and two-family residents in required front yards. However, because the proposed residences will be based on a standard prototype, which differs slightly from the original residence, new noncompliance beyond those permitted by 64722 and 64723 are created. All of the proposed homes will include, this is one of the clarifications from yesterday. 6 of the proposed homes will provide a parking space for one vehicle underneath the structure. Parking is only provided when it is possible because of the elevation height. The property, not reading this, sorry. The property that is not receiving the parking is 209A 100th Street. The proposed homes will be constructed in compliance with National Flood Insurance Program, as well as Appendix G, the flood-resistant construction portion of the New York City Building Code. The building's lowest habitable floor is elevated 2 feet above the base flood elevation and will include other storm-resistant features such as roof strapping, mold-resistant materials, and the buildings will meet Energy Star standards for energy efficiency. Okay, do you want specific building information about each one?
I don't think that's necessary.
Sure, I have one more clarification from yesterday's questions. One of the commissioners questioned about the provision of front yards that are larger than required. In 2 of the cases, an 18-foot front yard is provided to accommodate a stair. So the stair is a permitted obstruction. One of these cases, we're actually going to make changes, and Neil can speak to this, to respect street widening lines. We're going to be moving the building further back. These changes, as well as documentation demonstrating the parking beneath the buildings, will all be provided by Friday.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Thank you. I just have one, I believe it's the building in Edgemere. I'm just curious, are there other proposals, Build It Back applicants that it just haven't come into the pipeline yet for that?
Sure. Could you bring up the Edgemere neighborhood map? Just the zoning radius. So Edgemere is actually an urban renewal area, and HPD is the significant property owner of the vacant surrounding land. There are other Build It Back registrants in the area, but no others that require waivers.
But adjoining it, you expect infill?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That was my only question. Anyone else? Are there any speakers on this item?
So,
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
You're gonna provide driveways in lieu of like landscaping. front yard.
Correct, although in accordance with the required streetscape mitigation, so can you speak to this a little? I'll have Neil speak to this, but in some cases, we'll be moving the stair to accommodate the parking. In other cases, there'll be a stair turn.
Please state your full name.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Neil DeRitter. I'm an associate at Curtis and Ginsberg Architects. So in the case where we do have a driveway, we'll meet our mitigation points. We get 2 points for a covered porch. So that's how we'll meet those points.
And
Was that the question?
landscaping is not required?
No.
No landscaping in the front yard is required?
No.
Okay, I thought the flood hazard regulations did not waive the requirement for a certain percentage of your front yard.
Oh, I'm sorry. As far as that, like a landscaping requirement,
Yes.
we'll meet what's required for that, but we're not showing that. I'm just speaking to the mitigation points in the flood zone.
Oh, okay, so the mitigation points will meet,
Yeah.
but you'll also meet the landscaping requirements?
Yes, yes.
Even though you'll have a driveway in
Right.
front yard? Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to bring up.
Trying for,
Yeah. Doesn't want to do pages. Sometimes up to 9 on 1 arm. Is it a good example, Neil?
Sure.
Can you explain the parking, please?
Yeah, basically, we've got an 8-foot opening, 8-foot driveway, this minimum size that we can for parking, and 1 parking spot, straight up the street. And fortunately, the zoning text allows us to put a curb cut regardless of the distance between curb cuts on the streets.
so where is there room for landscaping then?
Basically, just outside of the driveway, that width of the lot beyond the driveway.
So essentially the side yards?
Yeah.
essentially. Okay. Okay. So, I'm sorry, are there any speakers on this item? No. Okay, so, there is? Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, my name is Alexander Heim. I am a homeowner adjacent to the property at 341 Beach 87th Street, which is one of the properties under consideration today. First, I'd like to mention that there was a notice sent out to the homeowners dated, I believe it was September 2nd, but I did not receive that until, actually, I never received it. I believe it was sent to the wrong address or the previous homeowner, the previous property owner. A neighbor told me about this, so I did not have, excuse me, a sufficient time to object. I received the notice on Friday, and it's due 5 days before today. So I would like extra time to put together a more thorough objection. If you'd like, I could go into details of my objection now, but...
Yes, please.
Okay, basically, they have the slides, but I did get a chance to review Curtis and Ginsberg's application this morning over in the 29th floor of 250 Broadway. It looks very good, and I have no major objections to their wanting to reduce the distance between the property line and the building down to 3 feet, because the existing properties in that yard there are 4 bungalows, they call them. They are about 3 feet to the property line already, which is fine, but they are very low-lying structures and are much different than what's proposed. Also, for what it's worth, I did speak with the owner just on Sunday to ask her if she's aware of the proceedings and what's going on. It seems that she basically applied to build it back right after the hurricane. I've not been in communication with her much because she's not very outgoing. She doesn't even seem to be aware of the fact that they're going to replace the buildings on her property. She's under the impression that they're going to lift the buildings, put them on piles or similar. She has been putting time and energy into restoring the buildings. So she put in new hot water heaters and painted them and whatever else. It looks like drywall and stuff I'm not really sure, but she's been restoring them. I see people there. Anyway, I'm not sure if that's relevant, because she probably would be happy to have a new building put in place of her 2 dilapidated bungalows. Anyway, the existing structure, like my home, is right at the front of the property. So in most homes on the street, there's only about 6 feet between the front of the property and the sidewalk. They're proposing to move it back 18 feet, I guess to allow for the stairwell and potentially for a parking space, which did not previously exist. There are no parking spaces on that lot at all. Pushing the building back to 18 feet is going to put this massive 22-foot plus structure right into the backyard of my property. It's going to be like a wall, which was not previously there. And all of these properties are over 100 years old, including mine. I know this because of tax photographs and documents from the Department of Finance from 1910 or around there. So in a nutshell, I believe that new building, if it's going to be constructed, should be moved up to the front of the property line to comply with the rest of properties in the block and to not impinge on the existing backyard.
Okay, thank you. You have that in writing, your testimony? Or can you submit that in?
I would need time to submit it since I just really found out about it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you.
So will I have time to?
Yes, we'll explain what the calendars.
Okay, good.
And the submissions, okay. Would you like to respond to that?
We have a few points there. One, just to allow the board to know, we spoke with every applicant who we filed on behalf of and received their verbal permission, and all of them were enthusiastic. That being said, Build It Back is an extremely complicated program, and there can be a lot of confusion when you speak with applicants about where they are, so that might allay the neighbor's concern. In relation to the property, I think it is important to remember with the findings of 6492, the relief we're asking is in relation to what could be built, must be compared to what could be built as of right. So the present structure can be rebuilt, or previous structure could be reconstructed, which it is non-compliant, but it would have to be elevated as per Appendix G. And if it were elevated to accommodate the stairs, it would still be pushed back approximately 18 feet to accommodate those stairs. The side yard non-compliances would still be intact, and it would just be creating a permitted obstruction in the rear yard of the new building. The building we are proposing has fewer non-compliances than the prior structure. It just happens to be elevated and slightly different, and therefore has no non-compliances.
But just to understand that a little bit more, the 18-foot setback is to enable the staircase in the front, right?
Yes.
And
let me pull it up.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Actually, if you didn't put the parking spot in the front, you could have a scissor stair and move the building forward. Correct?
Yes.
And there's no parking spot there now?
That is correct.
Is parking required?
So parking is required by zoning, but because the prior structure did not have a parking space, we do not have to provide a parking space. It is the program, when it is possible, the program likes to provide parking to these homeowners, as in many of these communities there is a high need for parking, and we've been advised by city planning and Department of Buildings that we should try to accommodate the request. with this home, we could provide a different staircase. The home would still, then what would, the required front yard is 10 feet? Excuse me.
Neil DeRitter again. The other thing that further complicates this one is the street widening line. We're taking our setbacks from the street widening line, so I'm sure from a neighborhood perspective, that seems like it's even farther back than the rest of these homes because of respect to the street widening line. So we would still have a 15-foot front yard, regardless of stairs or parking or anything.
That's what's required, the 15-foot? So I'm a little confused. You're providing 18 feet.
If we have parking, as soon as you have parking, you've got to do 8. So it's 15 without 18.
Well, what if you provide I can see the adjacent homeowners claim that it's going to be in his rear yard, adjacent to his rear yard, because you're pushing it way back. If you did not provide parking to this site, I think the rear yard, front yard is 10 feet. For an R4.
We're in 4-1, correct.
So you could bring it forward.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, it could be possible.
That's possible. I would like to point out that the previous building included a rear structure that I don't know whether or not it was a shed or if it was habitable space. But that was intruding in the rear yard as well.
That's going to be demolished.
That is going to be demolished or is demolished.
It's still there.
Yeah.
But it's also only a one-story structure, and this is a much taller structure, and that's the point, right?
Correct.
Right. So, yeah, if you could look at pulling this one forward. I'm just curious about this. How high again are the building lifted off grade by how much? I know off base, but
Generally 9, 10 feet.
9, 10 feet. Why isn't parking being included underneath the house?
It's underneath the house.
It is underneath the
yeah.
house. Okay, so then, is it just the size of the driveway that it's making you pull it back like that?
It's a zoning requirement.
It's just a zoning requirement. Do we have the authority to waive this requirement?
Yeah, you need that 18 feet when you're providing a garage underneath. You need that 18 feet in front of the garage itself. So regardless, he's supposed to provide that. If you want to foreshorten that in some way, then that would be a waiver of some kind that we would either grant or not grant, I suppose. But he's supposed to provide it to you.
So what I don't know is, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to this at this point. Do we have the authority under this to waive that depth? Okay. So I think the only solution then is, in this case, you pull it forward and you eliminate the parking, right? Because you don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
And in that other site, you don't provide parking, 209A Beach, 100th. Why aren't you providing parking there?
So in that case, the building's required elevation is not high enough to justify the bump up.
I see, okay. So then it wouldn't be inconsistent with your behavior on some other ones?
No.
Okay, so then, yeah, so if you could eliminate the parking on this, then you wouldn't be interfering as much with the neighbor, and that would...
Sure, so we can make that change can we make that change by Friday? We'll make that change by Friday and
Yes.
work with your schedule there?
Yes, okay.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Just to clarify, then you'll just move the building up 3 feet? Is that it?
No,
Probably
8
It'll be a whole 8
because there won't be
because you...
parking anymore.
Oh, because I thought it was then went from 18 to 15 feet.
So we will still be measuring the yard from the widening line.
Oh, okay.
mistakenly said 15, I was thinking of 3-1 zone.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. So, yeah, so if you could submit by Friday, that's therefore the 26th, that's good. And if you, sir, could submit also by Friday, the 26th, that would be great. And then we can close the hearing and have a decision on the 7th, as discussed. Is that okay?
Thank you so much for your consideration.
Sure. For a motion to close then? Wait, sorry?
Can I go up there?
Do you,
Spoke already.
sorry.
I want to know if we will meet again.
There's a hearing on the 7th of October.
Okay.
But it's a decision. We're closing the record closing the hearing and leaving the record open for you to submit your materials, and obviously HPD is responding to your concerns by moving the building forward.
Would I be able to have longer than Friday? Because that's only 3 evenings. I work full-time and have plans a few of these days already.
Yes, you could have until, what is that, Tuesday? The Tuesday, the 30th?
Better.
Better, gives you a weekend?
I could work with that.
Okay, good.
And just a couple other points to consider. I'm sure you did speak with the owner, but she's very poor English. She may be confused as to the fact that they're knocking down 2 structures for one, because they were both inhabited prior to the storm. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So for a motion to close then.
Chair Parramatta,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson,
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez,
Aye.
Commissioner Ali Brown.
Aye.
This concludes the public hearing.
Thank you. What? 10:07. 10:17. Bravo. Great. All of these work.